Hello, dear people. You will listen to, I hope, very interesting information, which will be discussed between me, Rabbi Meir Bruk, from Brooklyn, and Victor Vakhshtain, who is now in Israel, but as a Russian scientist in exile, his location is quite fast changing. So in a couple of days he will be in Montenegro, in Yugoslavia. So he will tell you more about himself. But it's really very interesting. So as you can recognize, my English is not my first language. So sorry for my accent. And I will tell a couple of words about myself. I'm Meir Bruk. Originally, I'm Mark Bruk. So in scientific world, people know me as Mark Bruk. And I'm 60 years old, and first 40 years of my life I spent in Kiev, Ukraine. So unfortunately, this Russian-Ukrainian war is my war because I feel pain for my many friends who are still in the Ukraine. And last 20 years, I'm living in Brooklyn. And if you hear Bruk from Brooklyn, it's not joke. It's my real last name. So my father was Bruk, my grandfather was Bruk. So last 20 years, I feel like God sent me to the place where it sounds like not coincidence. So, Omar Bruk. I have several representations. First 25 years, I was secular, and I graduated from math department with honor in Kiev University. So it was first miracle because when I started my learning, it was year 1982. It was Brezhnev time, so nobody believed that Jew can enter Kiev University because it was very anti-Semitic place. But it was one of the miracles. I'll tell it maybe next time. But we had in the math department like 10 Jews. So it was like nobody believed, but it happened. So I graduated. So I have MA in math. And after working with some interesting projects, so I created AI in 90s. So I made special systems, I programmed them, and I was author of some AI proto systems in 90s. And in 1994, when I was 30 years old, I was found by people from some Jewish education organization, Esha Torah, who lived in America and Israel and who wanted to attract Russian Jews to Jewish tradition, which was quite challenging. And for 10 years, I was educational director of educational center in Kiev. And I changed my scientific career to a teacher's career in religious world and in the world of Judaism. And when I was 40, I received an invitation from New York because, as you know, there are many Jewish immigrants from former Soviet Union, and the center of Russian Jewish place is Brighton Beach, famously known for many people. And in Brighton Beach, there are like 7-8 synagogues, and one of them, the biggest one, which we have like 600 seats, a major hall, and it was huge but empty because Americans came here and most of them died, and so they wanted to attract Russians to this place. And so because I had some connections, so they invited me and a couple of my colleagues to come to Brooklyn from different countries and start to attract Russian Jews to Jewish Center in Brighton Beach. So I became educational director of this place, and I still here. And so behind me, you can see it's a small synagogue, and it's a good place for me because every Saturday, every Shabbos, I give class from this chair. And so this position is, for me, is very good. But I have problem because I had huge crowd of followers Russian speaking. So when I speak in English, telling some ideas to somebody who doesn't speak Russian, usually they ask me if they can read something or listen to something in English. So I told, sorry, I have so big Russian crowd, so unfortunately I don't have enough motivation to make some English-speaking materials, because I'm quite popular in Russian areas, and people know me, and so it's I need extra motivation to change my to start to use my second language in English, because not all people, not all Jews, not all people speak Russian. So it's clear that it should be done on English also. So now my major goal is to introduce my guest, Viktor Vakhshtain, and I'll tell about him in 2 minutes. And I'll tell one story about myself, which will help you to be adjusted to what I will say later. I tell you a very provocative statement. I will tell you that I love Putin. What does it mean? As person, I hate him because he's maybe the biggest criminal. But as scientist, I love challenging people, because famous Russian writer Lev Tolstoy wrote that all happy people happy more or less the same way, and all unhappy people are good source for good novel. So usually negative heroes usually are much more challenging than positive heroes. So that's why a good writer usually invests more effort into expressing some negative character, because he can reveal his talent explaining how this negativity affects the world, and how we can overcome it, and how to save the world from this evil. So when 10 years ago, Putin occupied Crimea, and all the world was shocked, because people believed that the world should follow the same ideology, the same rules. And so Fukuyama told about the end of the history. So idea of the end of the history was that when all people follow the same rules, the world will be a nice place with no war, no diseases, no pandemic, no nothing wrong. And so people believed that if everybody will be the same, so it will be easy to make the world a happy place. But as a religious person, I tell you that God has different plans. As Lev Tolstoy, God does agree with Fukuyama. He doesn't like ideas at the end of the history, because according to Jewish tradition, we have a phenomenon of final last mile. You know that when you have some running competition, usually if it's long race, usually the most interesting part is the final couple minutes, because during the major part people save energy, and when they know that finish is close, so everybody start to express themselves, and so it's the most interesting to see how people finish, not how they start. So according to Jewish tradition, the world has 6,000 years schedule, and now we live in 5,784th year. So majority of the history is behind us. So everybody can understand that we live in crazy world, because we live in the final part of this history. And God wants this book of life be interesting for him. So that's, we know how Nassim Taleb told about black swans, that every day or every week something happened unpredictable. And usually the major challenge is that people cannot give good explanation what happened, because people usually, as people tell that all generals prepare to the to yesterday's war, and war is different. So that's why we need some people who can be flexible enough to give new explanation to what happened now. And when Putin started this war 10 years ago, I wrote an article, something Putin is not full of, Putin is not idiot, it was in Russian, and I posted it in the Facebook. And I was not as famous there, but God was very creative. So in Ukraine, it was a very interesting person who was former ambassador of Ukraine in Israel. And after there, he became very popular blogger, because he had very funny, very interesting, creative articles. No, he was mega blogger, and I don't know how it happened, but he found my article, and even more, he found, by the time I had hobby of boxing, and so he found me in boxing glove, and he gave a short explanation. He told that this rabbi should go to Security Council to explaining our politicians how to understand logic of bad people, because by that time nobody could explain why Putin ruled against all dominant politics, and people thought that he's fool, because why he breaks on rules, because people believe that as part of the club of nice people, Putin should be happy because everybody respected him by that time. So he was in the club of G7 or G8, so he was in good position. But on the local market, it was completely disaster, because Russia is crazy big country with a lot of challenges. So he made the best decision ever, starting this war, because this war helped him to consolidate, help him to make the best for him, not for the nation, especially not for my friends who are scientists or who are good people, but for himself and for his regime, for his power. He made the best. And I explained it, and this person who was mega blogger told that such person as me should go to Security Council to be good advisor. And after he reposted my article, it had more than 6,000 shares. So I never had such situation. So it became viral. So all internet was full of my article, because it was first time when I explained how to recognize logic behind people who act not according to mainstream position. And so when I say that I love Putin, I mean that analyzing such paradoxical figure, you can show your wisdom, and you can show people that the world is not crazy place. It's just followed by different logic. So one of the strong positions, because if you know that Talmudic training helps you to have multiple positions, and when you learn Talmud, so if you know all law schools buy English translations of Talmud, and they train themselves through Talmudic thinking, because all lawyers should look at situation from different positions, and not from only one narrow, but from different. And so this telescopic vision can be trained through Talmudic logic, and also my math in my MA in math helped me a lot, and my position and being a leader of Jewish community in the South Brooklyn helped me a lot. So for the last 10 years, I'm a very popular blogger, and especially when COVID started, so everybody moves to online. So Zoom is the best to do this way. And so as this guy told that, he told that invited me informally to be part of the Security Council in Ukraine. So I think that what we'll discuss today will help people to understand who is the source of the most relevant wisdom to current world. So I told that one of my attitude to God is that I love coincidences. So sometimes when I stuck, internet gives me some good link to some interesting person, and when I started to listen to this person, I immediately realized that this person is smart enough to that I should connect to him, and I should invite him to make show and make discussion, so to be host of discussion with him. So one of the, not last, because today I'm invited one more person, but it's not today's story. So I met Victor Vakhshtain, and I'll tell 1 minute about him, so he can tell a little bit more about himself. So Russia had a golden age of perestroika time, like 20 years ago, and one of the biggest product of this time was Shaninka. It was amazing university, which was started by Theodor Shanin, who was Jewish guy, amazing person, very creative and very famous and very productive. And so he founded this institution, and it's called Высшая школа экономики. So Shaninka was the most popular and the most trendy university in Moscow, and they prepared amazing scientists. And one of the most amazing place was Department of Sociology, and my guest was head of this department. and he trained a lot of students, and he's amazing scientist, and his opinion and his logic and his vision is really can amaze everybody. And so we both of us are the best position to be advisors of people who need it. And it's funny that the most interesting coincidence that today is the 28th of June, and yesterday it was a very fun event. The two clowns who plan to be current president and former president who wants to be future president, Biden and Trump, had a very funny debate. And so it really was like a big circus event, because everybody had fun of them, because it's really crazy how the people who wanted to be presidents, how they act and what's their logic. And it's funny that yesterday I spoke with Victor in Russian, and today we decided to start our English-speaking discussion to present good ideas. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter who is president if he knows whom. So what we'll tell you today, I hope will inspire you, and I tell you that you should share this material as wide as possible, because the more people will know, the more hope the world will have. Because really what happened now, that all these events, as crazy or as terrible they are, especially like October 7 in Israel, the more deep explanation we can give them based on scientific approach, based on people who can think deeper and who cannot prepare to yesterday war, but to tomorrow war. Because we know that in Israel, they prepared for war with Hezbollah, and nobody knows how it works. So all my friends can give good advices how it will develop. But we live in the world when everything is not predictable. So it's part of the rule that we don't know what will happen not only tomorrow, but in an hour. But now I know it in minutes, I know it will happen. So we'll speak with Victor, and I'll let him speak. So for like Department of Sociology in Shaninka, and a year before war started, Putin started to another war against progressive institutions. So Victor realized that he should emigrate. So it was an interesting story when people from KGB called to his door. He took his passport and he left through the window, and he escaped. And so he moved to Yerevan, to Dubai, and other places. And so he stopped in Israel, and now he is a key member of Center for Research of Russian culture, policy, and etc. And he started to restore Shaninka in exile in Montenegro, in Chernogoria. And so I hope that it will be successful project, because both of us relate to Jews. I'm completely Jewish, and Victor has a Jewish father and Jewish identity and not Jewish mother, but it doesn't matter. But as you know, Jews are professionals in living in exile, because for 2,000 years we are living only 70 something year we have Israel, but before exile was a natural habitat for Jews. And so when Russians now try to do exile existence, so they have whom to ask about experience. So as Jews, we can help them. And all of us have multiple identities. So I have Russian identity, Ukrainian identity, Soviet identity, American identity, Jewish identity, and this multiple. So it's like fluid identity, but not as fluid as it's trendy. But fluid means that I can change perspective, and I can look at the world from being Jewish, being a rabbi, being a mathematician, being psychological. I'm an expert in psychology, in psychiatry, in esoterics, and in mythology. So, and Victor is a more scientific person. So my primary position is more as religious leader, but Victor is a scientist. So now I want to introduce him to continue our speech. Only I want to tell him that even Shaninka was based on some Great Britain accreditation. Victor has not bad English, but he lives in Israel for a couple last years, and so if you know immigration situations, and when you have not first language, it's argument between English and Hebrew. So now he needs to for surviving skills, he needs to learn more Hebrew. So his English is not as good as mine. So you should be more tolerant to him because he needs some time to adjust. And when I met him last couple days ago, I told him that last word, I'm part of the synagogue, and the president of our shul is former dean of medical school in Columbia University. So he belongs to college world. And when I told him some ideas of Victor, he told me that a college world needs, as the fish needs water, so he desperately needs this wisdom. So he asked me what he can read in English from Victor. And Victor told me, I have different, more urgent needs. So maybe by the end of the year, I start to think about how to write something in English to English-speaking audience. So it's not my top priority, but because he needs to survive and restore his college. But for me, living in US and listening to these debates yesterday, I realized that, and having my closest friend and president being dean in the college, he told me that as soon as possible, we need this wisdom in English. So I told Victor, don't wait until there will be books. Let's start discuss with each other and let's share. And when you like what we'll say today, we'll continue and we'll invest more efforts into English language because now we have enough audience in Russia, but America needs it desperately because we'll have a president with very questionable mental health. And so, but if he knows where to ask for wisdom, it will be okay. So because president should not be the smartest person, he should have power of will to listen to smartest advisors who are open-minded and who are prepared to not to the past history experience, but to the future. So Victor is one of the best thinkers. And together with me, both of us can cover many topics. And now I want to introduce him. And so he's a little bit scared to speak English. So I want to encourage him, don't worry, be happy, because America is a tolerant country. And we belong not to minority, but maybe in New York it's majority, because majority of New Yorkers are not native Americans. I mean, it's not native English-speaking American. So most New Yorkers has strong accents, so you're not alone. So don't worry, people will understand. And moreover, if they hear accent, they are more tolerant and don't as angry as because a topic we will cover, it's quite sensitive. So please, let's start. And I want to ask you to tell a couple words about major topics that how to answer crazy student who will tell you that from the river to the sea, blah, 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 and the rest. So can we answer him not in a superficial way, but giving him some piece of wisdom? So let's start. So sorry, I took half of the time by myself, but the second part will be more for Victor. So please help save the world with your wisdom, which is very relevant to the world now. So thank you for your patience. So Victor, your turn.
First of all, thank you so much for your kind invitation and for the chance to practice my English. I understand that probably it's not so fluent as it's supposed to be, but I believe there are plenty of scary things in this world to be scared of speaking English, right? So you're absolutely right. For 14 years, I was the Dean of Social Sciences at the British University in Moscow, professor of sociology. So my primary goal now here in Israel, and no, I do not consider myself as a scientist in exile. Yes, we have established a university in exile for those academics who had to leave Russia and now live in many different countries. So they feel in exile and they need that place where they can continue their academic work. That's why we re-established Shaninka in Montenegro. But personally, I live in Israel. I am an Israeli citizen, so I do not feel myself as a scientist in exile, more like a repatriated scientist. But anyway, what we are doing here after 7th of October, many people who came to Israel due to Russian-Ukrainian war, Russian invasion into Ukraine, we established here an institute, International Institute for Social Legal Studies, to help Israel to cope with the situation, because the problem is that we don't have a language to understand what happened 7th of October. The problem
You mean
here
language,
that
sorry, you mean language, scientific language, does mean Hebrew or English. Language
what we
means
call,
language of description.
exactly, what we call in sociology language of description. How that language of description, that or framing system that can give us understanding of what's going on.
And
Because
context also.
we always talk about narratives, but narratives are probably the most superficial level of understanding, because we are listening to different stories. But those stories usually imply a little bit more fundamental level, which is a framing. For example, the concept of genocide, when we're talking about genocide in terms of conceptualization, when Raphael Lemkin introduced that idea, it was clearly connected both to Armenian genocide and, of course, Holocaust. But 20 years later, the concept of genocide was hijacked due to many very talented intellectuals like Jean-Paul Sartre or Bertrand Russell used all their academic power to reframe the concept of genocide from this idea of totalitarian regime and system of extermination to another discourse, to another language of description, where genocide is connected to colonialism, to imperialism, and so on. So narratives, frames, and collective representations, the axioms, probably the most fundamental and most basic level we need to pay attention to, which is actually some kind of Grundlage, base for all the building of our perception of reality, as those symbolic distinctions between evil and good, between progress and regress, between what world is about. And now in this institute, we have a different research dimensions, different research directions. For example, one of them, which is probably our main area of research, is media research. We are trying to understand how English-speaking media in the States and in UK are covering that situation, manipulating with the figures of, with the numbers of deaths in Gaza, how they try to pink wash the Hamas numbers and presenting them.
1 second, Victor. So my major was about election in America, but I want to pay attention that Victor speaks about another, maybe one of the visible challenges in America, which is campus riots, which against anti-Israel position of them. So this is focus of what Victor says, because we should to answer them. Yes.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Now I will get to it before I'm talking about media research, because media arena is one of them, and probably one of the most important, because falsification of numbers and manipulation of figures is one of the most important weapons that is used against Israel now. So we need to show how that manipulation works, how people are using figures to show that Israel is committing a genocide, despite the fact that all those figures are coming from Hamas. So the first take here is how to analyze and how can we prove that media actually is using it for its own purposes. The second direction of research is exactly what you just mentioned. It's not only about media coverage, it's also about intellectual war of concepts. Because those narratives that we study now, that narratives that are reproduced by students and campuses, were not just created by them. That was a long history of Weltanschauung, of worldview, that actually consists of 4 levels. And we can show how that system of beliefs, system of collective representations that is implied in those narratives is working now as a part of anti-Zionist rhetoric. For example, talking about those 4 storages, what actually people who are talking about from the river to the sea believe in? What are their major axioms? What are their collective representations? What are their symbolic distinctions between good and evil? That narrative is called progressive, but actually it's probably one of the most conservative narratives you've ever heard of. People who are chanting from the river to the sea, or by any means necessary, believe that world now is possessed by evil, and that evil is the United States. It's called imperialism, which is based on the power of neoliberal transnational corporations. So it's created as a machine of economic growth, which is unlimited, and natural resources of our planet are limited. So that kind of octopus of global imperialism that is sucking resources out of our planet is leading our world to disaster. So that's a first level, that what they call imperialism. And if you ask yourself how people on campuses can combine somehow in the same narrative ecological agenda, Zionism, that's probably one of the answers, because they very well match together in one story, because it's a story of a pure evil that is already ruling our world. On the level down, because in this kind of symbolic representations, it's always supposed to be good, evil, good, or threat, hope, threat, hope. So the major threat comes from imperialism. Where hope comes from? Jean-Paul Sartre was talking about the only islands of resistance. He was referring to Lenin's work, and later students on Columbia and many other places also referring with the same idea to Frantz Fanon, that there are islands of resistance. For Sartre, of course, it was Soviet Union for the short period of time, but what he calls countries of people's democracy, in countries that somehow try to stop American octopus.
Oh, Victor, let me interrupt you for a second. So Victor presents position of people whom we want to oppose, because when people Victor is
no, that's not my position. That narrative
can believe that it's his position.
That's
so it's not his position. It's narrative he wants done. So explain to sometimes that it's not your position, because otherwise people out of context start to think that it's your position.
Thank you, Meir. Thank you. Yes, that's not my position. My position is academic here. We're trying to analyze how this worldview is organized. So we're trying to unpack, deconstruct that picture that is painted by those narratives. So the architecture.
So now we can explain how evil pretends to be good using this logic, which is not as obvious, but when you explain it, it becomes more obvious how to recognize evil games. Okay, so let's continue. Sorry.
Let's continue with this. So people who call themselves progressives actually believe that world is run by this huge neoliberal imperialism that leads our world, our planet, to ecological disaster, and only a few countries that are trying to resist to that process. Actually, it's funny how Putin now in Russia is using this anti-colonial narrative. Post-colonial narrative is widely used by Putin's propaganda, because he's trying to say that, yes, exactly, the global imperialism of the United States and only countries that can resist to that movement, resist to that occupation, Russia, China, and Iran. So it's funny how they're trying to fit in this level that previously was occupied by countries of people democracy and progressive socialism. It doesn't work. Even left, radical left, do not believe Putin in this. Only maybe people from the gray zone, like Max Blumenthal, still believe that propaganda, but he's very, very hard trying to get there. But anyway, so there is a pure global evil. There are different countries that are trying to stop that movement, but evil relies on local evil, colonial. So the connection between imperial level and colonial level, that's how they perceive us, Israelis. We are for them just one offspring of octopus, one local colony of global imperialism.
Extension of evil world, yeah.
Absolutely, extension of evil. So local branch of global evil. And on that third level, not only colonial states, but also old empires, like supporters, UK, for example, and those who are trying to cosplay, who are trying to imitate imperial way of dealing with things. So that's why that third level actually is probably the most hated by those people, because Israel for them is a colonial, apartheid, genocidal state that is proxy agent of global imperialism. So that's why, for example, people from very, very radical left circles who support at the same time Putin and Palestine, as they call it they themselves. Actually, they support Hamas. So they say, look, what America is doing now. Americans are running two proxy wars. The two equal proxies of the United States, Israel and Ukraine. Two white supremacist regimes that are funded by the states are trying to organize their genocide on their territories. That's how they actually see it, because of this structure, that architecture of narrative. But below that, remember, threat, hope, threat, hope. Below this, there are movements they call people movements, people liberation movements. Before, it was a cult of Cuban Revolution. Now it is a cult of Hamas, because they see it, Hamas, as a people liberation movement. So
like heroic move, like heroes who fight against this global evil.
Frontliners, representatives of occupied people who have all rights to resist to colonial occupation. That's why for them, 7th of October...
You know, in English it's called underdog. So it's famous underdog, which usually is more beloved because he's weaker, so they support him. So at underdog can, if it's representing evil, it's another story.
No, it's another story. It's not underdog at all. Because, for example, nobody would call Che Guevara underdog, right? It's a totally different symbolic framing. For them, they are frontliners, they are martyrs, people who sacrifice their lives in order to break colonial rule. So that's why, very important thing, imperialism and colonialism work together, but axis of resistance and people liberation movements also should work together to break this imperial colonial alliance. So for them, the whole world now is a battlefield between good and evil, and Hamas, of course, and on the side of the good, because they represent Palestine. So that way of thinking was actually, we can trace it back to 1916, when Vladimir Ilyich Lenin published his paper called Imperialism as a Supreme Stage, as a final stage of capitalism, when he introduced that kind of architecture. Then we can see how Jean-Paul Sartre used it in order to show that Vietnam War was exactly that imperial colonial alliance against people liberation movement, but there is resistance from Eastern Bloc. So he said that that's what we need to do now. Sartre was not anti-Israeli himself at that moment. He was not anti-Semitic, definitely, but he produced that narrative, that symbolic structure that is used now also by students and campuses who implement that worldview in their narratives using very old images. For example, images from Soviet anti-Zionist propaganda. One of them is when American capitalist is sitting on the chair with a lot of money, and one of his knees, you can see Israeli military warmonger, and on the other, Ukrainian nationalists. So that's how Soviet Union tried to present its anti-nationalistic and anti-Zionist stance. So they equalize Ukraine and Israel as two evils controlled by the states. Or, for example, another image that was used by Harvard students, they posted it on Twitter, when you have a hand with Magen David, and they are hanging a guy who is probably Afro-American student, and a guy who is probably Palestinian Felah, peasant, and the Jewish hand is trying to hang them. But there is a sword of free world which liberates them and cutting those ties. So that's also a very powerful image that comes back. We can trace it back to 1960s, very strong anti-Semitic image that is used as a part of anti-Zionist propaganda. So when we are trying to understand how those weird narratives that used memory of Holocaust, it's another very important story, how they use the narratives about Holocaust now to blame Israel in genocide, use ecological talks, ecological ideas. They use, of course, anti-capitalism and anti-imperialist ideas. How all those three narratives combined in one, and why it is so resilient.
Powerful. Mm-hmm.
It's powerful for a not very big group of people, but it's resilient no matter what happens to it. But it can something to, it can mutate, can evolve. It can use different resources in order to reproduce itself. As you can see, for example, Green Party agenda and anti-Zionism from Soviet Union agenda can be combined in the same narrative if it fits that very strict structure of 4 levels, where you have global evil, global resistance, local evil, local resistance. So we can see how that scheme actually worked for conceptualization, very different things from 7th of October to Russian-Ukrainian war. That's what we're doing, actually. That's a part of what we call cultural sociology, and the best cultural sociology in the States, of course, by Jeffrey Alexander, actually the guy who coined that idea, and a brilliant sociologist, head of Yale School. So now we probably need this cultural sociology in order to understand how, for example, different anti-Zionist, sometimes anti-Semitic narratives can include in itself so many different sources of imagination and so many different images from different periods of time. And that's what we do. That's our research task for next.
Okay, excellent. So let me continue in a couple directions. At first, I want to suggest you to listen a couple more times this last 10-15 minutes, because Victor's genius put in the very short time frame the most complex structure which was used by this evil leftist people who played the world, and almost nobody can recognize all the structure because it's very multi-leveled. And so Victor's genius made as short but as clear explanation how it works. But what I want to tell you is that why I think that it's important that we, as former Russians scientists, represented to the Western world, because, as Victor mentioned, that in Soviet Union was the cradle of this approach, and so in 60s it's already flourished in Russia. And from one hand, people who explore this world, they have some experience because Soviet Union already passed this way, and so it's like role model for many leftists. Second idea is that Russian people, especially Jews, living in this propaganda world in 60s, 70s, they lived how to survive it. So we are not brainwashed by them. So we can have critical thinking, how not to be smashed by this political indoctrination. And so Russians have like a vaccine against this manipulative system. So West is more naive, because when you yesterday listened to these two candidates to presidential position, you were sad because you realize that presidents can be as stupid and so speaking such a way. But in Russia, we already passed this experience, and so we are mature enough to keep distance from this manipulative technology. So now Russia, in this not as Russia as Putin Russia, but Russian scientists like Victor and like me can help Americans who are more naive. Moreover, students, one of the reasons also for students' rights, because students are unhappy on local situation, because part of the success of this movement is because current situation in America is not as good as Golden Middle. And like many years ago, America was like prospering world. Now a lot of problems, and so students understand that they have real problems with high rent, a lot of not clearance what happened with their job this artificial intelligence and can smash all the market and so on, they feel vulnerable. And because politicians don't have answers to these vulnerable concerns, they substitute it with some different agenda, which based on this very complicated structure, which Victor explained, based on this political, this ecological, this blah, 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 this imperial, colonial, and so they give them this idea how they can express their vulnerability with their anger, and so Israel become this target of their unhappy feelings living in this crazy world. So from one hand, they don't understand that behind it there are a lot of very smart, evil, manipulative technologies. From second hand, people need to relieve this pressure. So if they feel themselves being unhappy, so they need to relieve this pressure to somebody, and so it's called scapegoat. Yeah. So unfortunately, Jews have many centuries experience of being scapegoat, because in different cultures, when politicians have problems on different levels, they use Jews as a scapegoat, and these mobs they express channel their anger against Jews, but behind it there is a very complicated structure how it works. So Soviet Union had this experience, and so Victor, being a part of the system, not as living there, but studying there, so he has really powerful keys how to unlock this this puzzle, and showing the smart people how to readjust our thinking, and to look at the world not as a mental health institution with crazy people, but as a very smart place where politicians do very smart, very deep state, yeah, very deep homework to preparing mindset for simple people to follow their evil plans. So as being minority who still, so people during the COVID, people believe in safety. But I believe in sanity, because the world become insane. So to keep sanity, we should be more deeper thinking. And I again suggest you to listen a couple more times what Victor told you a couple minutes ago, because he's amazing. So how in 10 minutes he showed all this complicated structure, which is double hidden, because every evil hidden behind the so-called good, which was good in the eyes of these manipulative people. So it's what we do now. It's like pilot project. So Victor has a lot of. I'm happy to know in Russian, because he has a lot of materials in Russian which open eyes what happened now, and he gives explanation what happened October 7, what happened in Russia, what happened in America, who rules the world, knowing this knowledge. So, but knowing this, so I believe that politicians will not be happy that we reveal this wisdom to people who are ready to heal themselves from this nightmare of manipulative technologies. So what I think that you should share what. So when you listen to this, so try to spread as wide as possible, because we should help the world to survive and to prosper, because it's not only against negative agenda, but we can create positive agenda, because science is not only give diagnostics, but give some treatment. So we have good ideas how to help people to not only to survive, but to prosper, because as a religious person, I believe that God has a plan. And so usually destruction comes as a crisis, usually destruction before construction. So to break old world, it's painful, but when we have ultimate goal, like we call this messianic consciousness, yeah, so Messiah is something positive which can recreate world after this old destruction. And so this year will be crazy. So we'll have elections in America in half of year, and people scared about November, because we understand that it will be war, real civil war between blue and red camps. And so in America is quite peaceful place, no real war, not like in Israel now, but we should anticipate more craziness and more manipulation and more professionalism in the evil camp. As I told that I love Putin because it helped me to show my wisdom, and so to help people to understand the agenda. So the world will go to two directions. Evil will go to more complicated structures of manipulating, and we representing good side should be prepared in advance, and so we should help people to be ready, not to digest, not to eat all this BS, all this stuff which is so popular in colleges, because as Nassim Taleb tells, that it's like Kremlin, Harvard mafia, that Soviet Union, Kremlin, polittechnologists, and Harvard follows the same evil rules because they are smart enough to manipulate people. So black swans, unfortunately or fortunately, wait for us, and so we should anticipate them. But Victor, for these 15 minutes, showed you that it's possible to not only to survive, but to reverse, and to mean that to unlock all these hidden structures. And the world is, for scientists, the world is the best place. You know that there is a joke that when a professor of medicine shows to his students some sick people, and when he found some very, very sick people, he told, guys, we are happy. Look how happy we are. This guy is so sick that we can learn from him a lot of wisdom, because the more the worse sickness, the more wisdom we can unlock. Because if just like small scare or bruise, it's superficial. But all like cancer, all these terminal diseases, they help us. So they are vehicles to develop science. So we need real challenges. So real scientists love such a world, and so because we don't love real what happens for evil, but from scientific perspective, it's really a very powerful habitat of. So it's called think tank. Yeah. So and when a couple of days ago I met and started to speak with Victor, I realized that world is good place, because now we can living in different countries. So he's in Israel, he's in Montenegro, I'm in Brooklyn. But we can speak to each other, and we can share with each other through Zoom, and we can share. So everybody of you who listen to what we speak now can, with one button, you can share in your audience. And so it's not will be done automatically, because these algorithms of social media supports not smart people, but something different. But I believe that when we move through some threshold, when we become powerful, so because recently, a couple months ago, I started to act together with YouTube. So after some position, so it started to help me. So instead of hundreds of people, I received thousands of people who watch my materials. So I believe that when you help, and so when you help to spread this material, it will pass through threshold, and so it will algorithms evolve for us, and so more people will know. So more feedback will have. So ask questions, because Victor, the most complicated questions we and Victor can answer. So look for the most challenging questions to ask us, and so we are ready to answer them. So the more crazy situations, the more fruitful it's for scientists who has multiple positions, and so who has different narratives. And for us now, it's a real challenge and real golden age for scientists of future who prepare not for yesterday war, but for tomorrow war, because we are prepared for the war, civil war in America between Trump and Biden, or maybe different guy, because Biden, even Democrats were very unhappy how Biden acted, being too old. So we need not old guys like Biden or Trump. We need new guys as me, and even I have white beard and I'm 60. Victor a little younger, but we are young in our inside, and we are flexible, and we train ourselves, and especially all together train ourselves to unveil all this and to reveal all these tools. So you can, the more you help to spread the word, so the more chances to survive and to prosper, because we are prepared, we are ready to answer to you the most difficult questions. It needs some time, but not like generation. It needs like a couple of days to digest. And so listen to my previous article about Dagestan terroristic attacks, because what happened to Makhachkala and Derbent. So I made material 2 days ago, and it's also very interesting. So because really the worse situation, the better is for real scientists who, as Tolstoy told, that negative characters are food for thought for positive scientists who help the world to survive and to live a normal life and to stay to protect sanity and to understand what happens. So, Victor, you have like a couple minutes to say final words, because I promise people that in a couple of days now I'm more. So you are more busy. So Victor is more busy because he needs to help to survive big institutions. So I'm more flexible because I have more free time. So Victor, we should plan as soon as possible our next podcast, because it's the most important part for the world to survive is to share what we have for the greater audience. So say a couple of words and
thank you very much.
Let
That's it.
people anticipate.
I definitely need to run. So yeah, I have plenty of things to do, including I have a flight tonight. So good luck to everyone. And yes, keeping sanity is one of the most important things we can do in the world now. Thank you, Meir.
Yeah, so I'm happy because I read your materials in Russian. So in Russian, you have a huge reservoir of wisdom. And so now our goal is to translate it into English-speaking audience, because I know some answers because I read in Russian. So Russia can save America because of our previous experience and background. We are already past a couple such challenges, which America just started to try to realize where they are. So I want to finish on positive note, because
we usually call publication list, but yeah, I like your translation more. Yeah, that's just a list of publications. It's not reservoir of wisdom, but I like the way you frame it.
Okay, so if you have a couple more. If we have a couple more sponsors, we can attract more people to help with us, because now both of us, we are a very small team, but very powerful. We know many answers, so when we can expand it, and so when we can share a lot of different materials. So stay with us. So I wish Victor to a safe trip from Israel to Montenegro, because Russia in exile, it's a next challenge for many good Russians. And Russia has not only. So I want to tell you that Russia is not empire of evil. It's a normal place which was hijacked and was raped by evil power. And we should undig all this wisdom from Russia, as before was Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and others, and Brodsky. So we're very popular in America, like last century. So now we are like new classics. So follow us. So you can find a lot of good materials. So your curiosity should help you to undig and to be on top of life. Be subjects, not objects. So I'm happy enough that we made it. So first attempt, I think, is very successful, but it's just a start. So we are ready to share with you a lot of different materials. So, and also you should join, and you should. I want to help if you find a good sponsor. Maybe it's good idea to sponsor Shaninka in Montenegro, because it's a center of revealing deep truth, which will help to save the world. So thank you for your attention. Help us to spread it, and I promise you that soon you'll have more materials, and you will be more happy to understand what happens, because there is a special logic which when you listen to it, you understand that world has some logic, but it's much deeper and not as superficial as you think. So it's good to know that a lot of wisdom is waiting for us. Thanks. See you soon, hopefully. And if you speak Russian, so we'll have another materials in Russian. So we have both languages, and it will be available for you. So thanks a lot. See you soon. Thank you.